One of the biggest talking points in the fitness industry is, should you bulk or should you cut? Now, what does that even mean? Bulking is where you're in a calorie surplus and you eat and consume more food and drink than you burn on a daily basis. And then a cut is pretty much just the opposite. You make sure the food and drink that you're eating is not as much as you are burning. I mean, that is pretty much the simplest way to put it, but if you want it to be even more simple for you to understand, bulk equals eat a lot, not as much activity. Cut equals a bit more activity, eat a bit less. Simple. But some people often find themselves in the middle ground and they become skinny fat. This is a term used to describe someone that has quite a bit of fat on their body visibly, no real definition, but can also appear to be skinny. So at this point you might be thinking, okay, Callum, well, have you even ever been skinny fat? How can you even talk about this? Well, I'll have you know that I've definitely been skinny fat. And in fact, I've been pretty much every physique that you can imagine. I've pretty much been like a Pokemon at this point. I've been skinny and I've been fat, and I've also been skinny fat. So let's just say I have pretty good grounds to speak on this and how you can overcome being skinny fat if that is you right now. So what actually causes you to become skinny fat? Most of the time, people don't even realize that they're skinny fat until they look in the mirror and really analyze their body. Some of you might be thinking, oh, well, it's just my genetics, that's just how I am. No, you've just been doing things wrong probably your entire life. So let's go into the things that you're probably doing wrong that has led you to become skinny fat. We're first gonna talk about nutrition. You probably make terrible food choices and just bad lifestyle decisions in general. You probably drink on the weekends. You probably have too many sweet treats within the evening or just throughout the day in general. Probably some sugary drinks here and there, some fizzy drinks, whatever you like. You have bad processed foods and nothing really whole, and you don't really have a balanced diet in general. And then on top of that, you might actually just overdo it in the drinking department on the weekend. In terms of actual physical activity and training, you're probably massively inconsistent and you don't go frequently to the gym or train at all, and you're maybe even doing the same exercises over and over and over again, and so your body becomes very used to it and doesn't really have the ability to grow, or you're not training intense enough, which is pretty much the same thing, and overall there's just no real muscle growth, no improvement in the tone in your body, and therefore you just stay the same. Some people might be watching this and they've either been skinny or they've been overweight, and all of a sudden they find themselves being skinny fat. These are probably some of the mistakes that you're making right now. The common mistakes include an overweight person cutting down way too quickly, and therefore they're left with a lot of excess skin or fat, and they just don't look great. Usually these types of people focus on the scale more than the way they actually look. And with cutting down way too fast, it's gonna mean you're gonna lose quite a lot of muscle. And then you have the other side of things where the skinnier guy or even the skinny fat guy bulks up way too quickly. And this is also gonna lead to a lot of excess fat. And probably you're not training right either. So let's talk about the steps that you need to take to avoid becoming skinny fat. A lot of you guys can start implementing this right away if you're skinny fat, and it will make a difference. Make sure that you're getting in enough protein within your diet. The typical amount is going to be 1 gram of protein per pound of your body weight. That's pretty simple to work out. And you can get in the protein by any means necessary, whether that's food, supplements, any way you like. But I tell my clients to go for the whole foods option and then only use supplements if they absolutely need to. The next thing that you need to do and avoid is alcohol, and just really limit the amount of alcohol consumption that you're having. Stop with the heavy drinking. It's just gonna make things 10 times harder. The amount of calories there are in alcohol is, I don't even wanna think about it, it's unimaginable. Doesn't mean that you can't drink ever again, but just save it for occasions, okay? Next, you're probably not thinking about progressive overload. Progressive overload, to put it simple, is where you try to improve the amount of reps that you can do on exercise, or maybe you up the weight, maybe you change the variation of the exercise to make it harder, or potentially you can hold it for a longer amount of time if the exercise you're doing is a hold. Overall, you just need to make the exercises that you do harder, or try to, every single week. And if you're not doing that, you're gonna stay in the same place. Make sure to lift to a pretty heavy standard, use enough resistance, and also train with intensity. And lastly, make sure that 80% of the foods that you're eating are good, healthy foods. Just make sure that you have a balanced diet with whole foods in there, not processed foods with added sugar and all this garbage garbage that you see in the supermarket nowadays. Just eat real food that is going to help you. That's it. So now let's go through the 3 main routes that you can implement in order to stop being skinny fat. Number 1 is going to be doing a bulking phase. This is where you have a calorie surplus in order to increase your weight. This will be great for skinnier people with a low body fat percentage. However, I would not recommend going overboard and doing a dirty bulk where you just eat crap. Go for the lean bulk option, which is a 200 to 300 calorie surplus. Make sure the majority of the foods you're eating are healthy foods. And after doing that for around 8 to even 12 weeks, if you find yourself putting on too much fat, then just implement a small 2, 3, 4 week cut phase in there and you'll be looking great. You'll be looking shredded. You'll be looking amazing. The benefits of doing a bulk are going to be that you're heavier, which means that you're more than likely going to be stronger. You're also going to have a lot more energy because the amount of food that you're taking in means that it's got to go somewhere. And due to the fact that you'd be choosing a lean bulk, this is going to be a lot more manageable for you. You're going to be in a small surplus where you can still enjoy the food that you like, and it's not going to be too much of a thought process to eat loads and loads of food just for the sake of doing so. Now, the negatives of the bulk is something that people don't talk about maybe enough. It could be hard to monitor due to the fact that you might be thinking the weight you're putting on is muscle rather than fat. You might be putting on a bit too much fat, which you don't really want. And then this can therefore lower your confidence long term, especially when you look in the mirror. You're gonna have more weight to your body and more than likely extra fat, and that might not help with your self-esteem, but you'll be strong. But to be honest, maybe that's something that you wanna do. Not everyone wants to be absolutely ripped and shredded. Some people just wanna gain some more weight maybe and feel better and more confident that way. That's totally fine. A good example of someone that actually went through this process and bulked up really well in a lean bulk was one of my clients, Mario. He started off being pretty skinny. He didn't even take his shirt off because he was too worried about people seeing him, especially on the beach. Now he has no problem doing that. He's bulked up, he's way stronger, he looks way more shredded. You can see his abs coming through as well. He just looks incredible. Now let's move on to option 2, which is doing a cut. Being in a cut, like we talked about, you're going to be in a calorie deficit. This is going to mean that you're losing weight quite quickly, and hopefully it's going to be fat, but we'll get onto that in a second. The cut is obviously going to be mainly for people with a high body fat percentage and people that are overweight. If your goal is to get way more shredded and way more lean, then this is going to be perfect for you. This is really what's going to get you a low body fat percentage. It's going to allow your abs to really come through and be more defined, and the rest of your body is going to be looking incredible along with that. And if you find that you cut down and maybe you're not completely happy with the way you look because maybe you feel a little bit smaller, which is very natural on a cut, then you can always just lean bulk from there and not put on too much fat. This is going to give you more muscle and then more definition long term. A prime example of someone who did this perfectly was my client Aaron, and this only took him 12 weeks, which is pretty insane to think about. Before doing a cut correctly, he tried to do it before and then lost way too much muscle and a lot of strength, and he didn't really enjoy the way he looked. But what we did is that we kept the protein high, we gradually decreased the amount of calories that he was having week by week, and then from there he was able to not lose any muscle and actually gain muscle and strength at the same time as he was losing that fat in order to create the perfect physique that he has now and the one that he's happy with, in order for him to take his shirt off, be more confident, and actually be happy with the way he looks. In order to pull this off, we had to make sure that he had a high protein diet. That was essential. But he was still allowed to have his favorite meals. And I'll even go through his food journal now so you can see exactly the foods that he was having whilst he was being able to achieve that physique. He still had little sweet treats here and there, but as long as 80% of the foods that he was having were good, whole, healthy, natural foods, he was going to be just fine. So even someone like Aaron with a sweet tooth, and to be honest, I'm a bit guilty of that as well, he was still able to do it. So if that sounds like you, it's possible. That's the good news. With Aaron, we just focused on 3 full body workouts a week. We utilized a lot of compound lifts targeting multiple muscle groups at the same time, and obviously we had to factor in progressive overload, trying to make everything harder week to week. And this is exactly what enabled him to keep on to his muscle, build muscle, and lose fat all at the same time. You can see that doing a cut for someone that has the physique of maybe Aaron would be perfect, but I only recommend doing a cut for high body fat percentage people like he was. The benefits of doing the cut is that it's a lot easier to monitor. You don't get any excess fat, and you're gonna look a lot better and way more confident, trust me. But there still are some negatives because we haven't really talked about that yet, but there definitely are a few things that you might want to consider. During a cut, you're not gonna get stronger very quickly. It's gonna take a little bit more time. It is way harder to build muscle when you're in a cut, and one of the factors that contributes to this are low energy levels. And then this is gonna mean you typically will have shorter workouts and they won't be as intense. And one thing that people don't really talk about is that you may look skinnier in clothes, and then that could also affect your confidence in one way or or another. But when you do take your clothes off, you're probably gonna look bigger. And then we move on to the very last way that you can get rid of the physique that you currently have if you're a skinny fat person. And that is gonna be my personal favorite, body recomposition. You may have heard this before, but you don't really know what it means. So I'm gonna break it down for you, and we're gonna figure out if this is gonna be the best thing that you can do in order to improve the way you look. This one is not as mainstream, but it's definitely a very good option. This is where you stay the same kind of weight, but you lose fat and build muscle at the same time. You'll be in a small calorie surplus, and you'll be training intense a lot of the time. In my opinion, if you haven't got much experience and you don't really know what you want to do, and you're not really bothered about the amount of time that it's gonna take you to achieve the physique, I would always opt for the body recomposition. It is a really, really good middle ground, but do be warned, it's harder to achieve results quickly. There's a very fine line that you have to tread with not overdoing it in the nutrition department and training intensely enough for you to actually see growth. And let's just say it's a bit of a more complicated situation. So if you're doing it by yourself, you might become quite frustrated. That's just what happened to me when I first learned about it. So again, I'm speaking from experience here. Another great example of someone who did this that I coached that is not me is Oliver. Ollie decided to do this exact thing, stayed the same kind of weight, but built way more muscle, way more definition, got rid of the fat that he had on his body, and you can even see his abs coming through very, very nicely. Way more defined, way more confident than before, way more happy, higher self-esteem. And I'm even gonna insert a little clip right here to show you how much it really affected him. But yeah, man, you should be so proud of yourself overall. I'm really proud of you.
I am. I definitely am.
Good.
Looking back at where I was 6 months ago and how I was back then looking at the coaching, I thought, I don't know if this is gonna work for me, but I pushed through that, and after like 2 weeks I started to really enjoy it, and that was one of the best decisions in my whole life. This really helped me a lot. I gained so much confidence from just looking in the mirror now. It's something I couldn't even imagine 6 months ago.
All in all, we just stripped away as much fat as possible and then built strength and muscle at the same time. This transformation took more like 3 to 4 months, which is definitely a longer time frame, but if you're comfortable waiting that long, you can definitely do the same thing. The great thing about the body recomposition is that it's not as taxing on your body, well, compared to the other options that we talked about anyway. And obviously, you have the amazing benefit that you're getting a 2-for-1. In my opinion, that's perfect. I don't mind waiting a bit longer, but I guess it depends on your patience levels really, doesn't it? Everyone's different. So you might be sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, I have to go for the body recomposition one. That's perfect. Well, there are some downsides, unfortunately. Obviously, we kind of briefly discussed that already. The fact that it does take a little bit longer than the other methods we talked about, the bulking and the cutting. Sometimes, depending on your genetics and the way you're training and your knowledge about the topic in general, it can take more like 6 to 12 months instead of 3 to 4 months. Sometimes it could even be longer than that. Another negative is that it could be a lot harder to track, and therefore your motivation won't be as high because you're not going to see changes as quickly. You definitely can't be relying on the scale and weighing yourself all the time because it's not really going to give you a true measurement. What I do with my clients that I coach is I will make sure that when they weigh themselves and they're definitely doing the body recomposition, they're also taking a photo and a progress photo every single time at the same time, so that number one, they remember to do it, and number two, they can actually visually see the changes rather than just looking at numbers on a screen all the time. It's not very helpful for things like this. So yeah, it can sometimes be a little bit demotivating, especially if you don't really know what you're doing, and it just takes a little bit longer to see the visual changes. But it does happen. Again, you have to be patient. Patience is a virtue. So yeah, those are pretty much all the options, and now I'm just going to jump into my summary of everything and my personal conclusion from all the different options and which ones that you can pick and which will be suited to you. So overall, you might have to combine a few different of these options in order to get the best results. You might not always stick to a lean bulk. You might not always stick to a cut. You might go from phases of doing 3 to 4 months of a lean bulk and then a few weeks or maybe a few months of a cut in order to get the best results for you. Or maybe you want to go for the body recomposition option and you find that you still want to lose a little bit of fat at the end of that process, and then you start a little bit of a cutting phase. It's always going to vary, and most of the time you're going to be choosing multiple options over a certain period of time. But for some of you lucky people, you might only have to do a body recomposition and you'll be just fine. I think a lot of it depends on your current physique along with the goals that you have in mind. And if you know your goals goals and you know exactly what you want to do, it's going to become a whole lot easier to pick one of these options. But if you're still a little bit confused and you do need maybe a little bit more help or advice on which one you should actually choose, then let me really break it down to make it simple. If you're at a high body fat percentage and you're overweight, in order to get that lean look, you're going to want to cut. If you're at a low body fat and you're maybe skinny and you want to be bigger and stronger, then a lean bulk is going to be perfect for you. If you're inexperienced and you want both and you don't really care about how long it's going to take, then go for the body recomposition. And a little side note, one thing I haven't really mentioned in this is a dirty bulk, or just bulking in general instead of what I talked about, which is the lean bulking. The reason being is because I personally went through doing more of a dirty bulk where I was just eating crap and a lot of bad foods. I felt disgusting. I had a lot of spots and acne on my face. I developed loads of stretch marks and it just wasn't a great time. So I would never recommend that for any of my clients. Always has to be a lean bulk. That's just my personal preference. Not saying you can't do it, but do it at your own risk. Once you have your goal out of the 3 options that we've discussed, now you need to do progressive overload with compound lifts, like we talked about, trying to improve everything each week with the training. With your nutrition, reduce any added sugars, don't eat any processed foods or really limit the amount that you're having. Remember the rule that I said about 80% good whole foods. Hit the protein goal like we talked about, 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And lastly, monitor everything each day and you will get there. Just stay patient and work hard. And if you want complete guidance with this whole process, or you just want a little bit more advice or some tips on the option that you should choose for you, your body, your goals, and everything else, then I am here to help with that. I've had 9 years of coaching experience, coached and helped over hundreds of people, and I do it every single year and have been doing it for a long, long time now. The way that I like to do things is structured completely based off of you and your lifestyle that you currently have right now, your preferences, building you a personalized workout plan along with complete nutritional guidance for your goals, making sure that I keep you accountable for absolutely everything, along with improving your understanding of fitness and also building your mental resilience, along with improving your mindset. Then go to the description of this video and you'll find the details to book in a battle plan call with me and my team, where we'll guide you in exactly what you have to do in order to improve your fitness, your health, and your life. It's completely free. You can do it just to get a complete health audit of exactly where you're at right now and what you need to do to improve, the exact steps that you need to take. And once you do that, you'll be in a lot better of a place, especially if you're watching this video right now and you're still a little bit confused or you want a little bit more clarity. So yeah, I'll leave the link in the description, and if you're booking a call, we'll be in touch. But that's it for this video, guys. So if you did enjoy it and you like these style of videos where I'm talking about different topics within fitness, then make sure to leave a like. It'll really help me out. And also make sure to subscribe if you do want to see those videos. Again, leave a comment of what you guys actually want to see me talk about next, and I'll definitely look through all the comments and see what I can come up with to make it entertaining but also educational. All right, guys, until next time, I'll see you soon.